Yellowstone 1923 Family Tree. How the 1883 Duttons are related to Jacob and Cara. Yellowstone 1923 has proven to be another success story for Paramount following the first prequel, 1883. The second season kicked off with Alex, played by Julia Schlattfer, announcing her pregnancy to her best friend as she went on a mission to find Spencer Dutton, Brandon Sklinner. He was on a ship home to Montana and was taking a beating along the way. Meanwhile, his parents back on the ranch were dealing with one of the harshest winters they had ever faced. Donald Whitfield, Timothy Dalton, was coming up with innovative ways to take over the Dutton Ranch, while Cara and her family were merely trying to survive the season as wolves and lions preyed on them. Express.co.uk has all you need to know about how the two generations are related, as 1923 welcomes back Harrison Ford as Jacob Dutton and Helen Mirren as Cara Dutton for Season 2. James Dutton, played by Tim McGraw, and he was the patriarch of the family in 1883, who first founded the Dutton Ranch in Montana. He settled there at the request of his daughter Elsa, who died after being shot with an arrow. The first episode of 1923 explained how James was the brother of Jacob Dutton, and Jacob had come to the family's aid after hearing of James' death. After learning James' wife, Margaret, was also dead, Jacob took their children and raised them like they were his own sons. Margaret, Faith Hill, was the matriarch in 1883, and she cared deeply about her children and their safety. Although feisty and a fearless fighter, she was always worried about what the future looked like for her family. Following the death of her husband, she perished and left her two sons behind. She was the sister-in-law of Jacob Dutton, and he came to her rescue by carrying on James' legacy. John features in 1883 as a young boy played by Audie Rick, and he is the younger brother of Elsa Dutton. He was one of two surviving children as Elsa died from her injuries at the end of the first prequel. The character is played by James Badge Dale in the 1923 prequel, and he is Jacob Dutton's nephew. He was one of the most loyal workers on the ranch who sadly lost his life after the family got caught up in a shootout with enemy ranchers. Elsa, Isabel May, is the narrator in both 1883 and 1923, despite the fact she was killed off at the end of the first prequel. She defied her family's expectations of her, as ranch life was something she was keen to get stuck into. Swapping her dress for trousers and chaps, she embraced the male-dominated line of work. Elsa is the niece of Jacob Dutton, although he never got to see her alive. Viewers were thrilled to hear the actress has been brought back to tell the next chapter of her family's story. Unfortunately, there will be no new episodes of 1883 as 1923 acts as the next part of the story. The second season is made up of 8 episodes, with Alex actress Julia warning of devastating circumstances for her character. She told Express.co.uk, "I think we find her in such a broken place. She was this caged bird who broke free of that, and then was quickly caged once more. Not only did she lose the love of her life, but she watched the love of her life kill another man in front of her, which is a lot to process. Then she's returned home and literally locked in her house by her family, with so much at stake now." The Dutton family tree is a sprawling and complex web, woven through generations of hardship, resilience, and an unrelenting pursuit of preserving their legacy. The connection between the Duttons of 1883 and the Duttons of 1923, particularly Jacob and Cara, is one of the most intriguing aspects of the Yellowstone universe. The 1883 Duttons, the pioneering generation. The story of the Duttons begins with James Dutton and Margaret Dutton, the central figures in 1883. James, a Civil War veteran from Tennessee, took his family westward, seeking a better life. Margaret, his strong-willed wife, was his equal in fortitude and dedication to their children. They had 3 children. Elsa Dutton, their beloved eldest daughter, whose tragic fate shaped the family's destiny. John Dutton Sr., their only surviving son, who carried on the family name. Spencer Dutton, the youngest, whose early years were spent on the Yellowstone ranch. The tragic fate of Elsa Dutton. Elsa was the heart and soul of 1883, a free-spirited and adventurous young woman. She fell in love with a Comanche warrior, Sam, and was prepared to live a life with him on the plains. However, fate had other plans. She was mortally wounded by an arrow during an attack, and her death determined the family's final settlement in Montana. Before passing away, Elsa chose the location for the Dutton Ranch, forever tying her spirit to the land. James and Margaret buried her on what would become the Yellowstone Ranch, solidifying their family's claim to the land. John Dutton Sr., the bridge between 1883 and 1923. With Elsa gone, John Dutton Sr. became the heir to the Dutton legacy. As the surviving son, he grew up on the Montana ranch and witnessed the harsh realities of frontier life. His upbringing was shaped by his father, James, who taught him the importance of defending their land at all costs. However, James Dutton did not live to see the full establishment of the Yellowstone Ranch as we know it. At some point between 1883 and 1923, both James and Margaret met their end, likely due to the relentless challenges of frontier life. After their deaths, the responsibility for the ranch fell to Jacob Dutton, James's brother. Jacob and Cara Dutton, the second-generation custodians. Jacob Dutton, played by Harrison Ford in 1923, is James Dutton's younger brother. Unlike James, who had initially sought to find land elsewhere, Jacob became the firm and unwavering patriarch who took control of the Yellowstone Ranch when his brother passed away. Jacob married Cara Dutton, an Irish immigrant with a fire in her soul. Cara proved to be a formidable matriarch, taking on the challenges of ranch life with unwavering dedication. Their leadership during the early 20th century cemented the Duttons' power in Montana. How Jacob and Cara fit into the Dutton legacy. Jacob is James Dutton's younger brother. This means he is John Dutton Sr.'s uncle, and the great-uncle of any children John Sr. would later have. After James and Margaret's deaths, Jacob and Cara stepped in to raise John Dutton Sr. and Spencer Dutton. They became surrogate parents, ensuring the Dutton family and the Yellowstone Ranch survived through a new era of challenges. John Dutton Sr. worked closely with Jacob, learning how to manage the ranch, enforce its boundaries, and maintain its strength against external threats. Spencer Dutton, the youngest child of James and Margaret, grew up under Jacob and Cara's care, but later left the ranch to fight in World War I. His journey in 1923 takes him far from home, but his connection to the Dutton legacy remains crucial. The legacy lives on. The events of 1923 showcase the turbulence of the era, droughts, conflicts with cattle barons, and the rise of new threats to the Duttons' claim on the land. Jacob and Cara, stepping into their roles as the family's leaders, had to navigate these treacherous waters while raising the next generation of Duttons. John Dutton Sr., raised by his uncle and aunt, carried on the family's name. His son, Jack Dutton, represents the continuation of the bloodline, which will ultimately lead to future generations, including the modern-day Duttons seen in Yellowstone. The lasting impact. Jacob and Cara Dutton's impact on the Yellowstone Ranch cannot be overstated. Without them, the legacy James and Margaret Dutton began might have crumbled. By stepping in as leaders, raising their nephew and great-nephews, and fiercely protecting the land, they ensured that the Dutton name would endure for generations. The Dutton family tree is one of sacrifice, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to the land. From James and Margaret's perilous journey in 1883 to Jacob and Cara's unyielding leadership in 1923, each generation has faced its own battles. And through it all, one thing remains constant: the Yellowstone Ranch and the Dutton family's promise to protect it at any cost.